computer or more. You never can tell. Hi.
Hello, everybody, and welcome
Ooh.
to Kind Soup. Our tour around the world is taking us to Turkey today with Alexa, to whom I will introduce you in just a minute. But I want to say hi from sunny Florida. I'm locked out of my Airbnb, so I fortunately cooked my soup yesterday, and I'm sitting in the backyard under the tiki hut. So welcome everyone to sunny Florida. Thank you for joining us. Troop 33003, we're so excited to have you.
Yay,
You guys are
Scouts.
muted. You want to unmute? Hi, all. So you're all cooking together. That's so much fun. How many pots of soup are you making? Just the one big one? Two? Fantastic. Well, welcome. What we're going to do is let Alexa introduce herself and this soup, and she'll get us started. And then if anybody, you guys included, Troop 33003, you can unmute and ask your questions later, okay? All right. This is my friend and board member, Chef Alexa, and she's going to lead us in Turkish red lentil soup today. Alexa?
Yes. Hello. Welcome. It is nice to see everybody and to have Scouts joining us as well. The familiar faces and then also new faces as well. So I am super excited to be cooking with you all. And of course, obviously, I don't know if you all have all heard the news, but there was another earthquake today there was another earthquake in the same area in Hatay, and there were some deaths, more buildings fell down. So the news just continues to be really, really devastating out of Turkey. I have friends who live in Istanbul and who have said that the entire country is in mourning. The entire country is mobilizing to help as best they can. They've had to say, people do not drive to these affected areas because, of course, the Turkish people are so wanting to help their countrymen. And so it is, but it continues to be very devastating and very dangerous. And it's going to take years and years for the recovery for that area to get back, to what it was. Obviously Antakya, is Antioch. It's like so many places in that area is thousands of years old, right? And buildings that were hundreds and thousands of years old. And so the devastation is just incredible on that level, but then also obviously the humanitarian and the human level. I'll be able to share, Deb, maybe in a little while, once at least I get my soup going. I think some people have already cooked. I just have a few quick images just of the map and kind of where the devastation is. So, and then I have some organizations and some information about just a little bit about, the number of people who have been impacted by this. So since we are cooking soup, let's start by turning on our flame. I have my oil already in my big pot. So we can start with that. And for the new people, some of the families here on the call, we come every Monday, and so we all just kind of do our thing and cook. But I'll try and kind of walk us through the soup maybe a little bit more than we usually do. Deb asked me to cook a soup with you all. And I chose red lentil soup, obviously because of what's happening in Turkey, but also because my husband and I went to Turkey. My husband's Egyptian, but we went to Turkey for the first time in the fall of 2018. And we went to Istanbul and we just had the most amazing vacation. Not only was it the first vacation without all four of our children, but it was also just this really, really wonderful trip. And we fell in love with Istanbul, completely fell in love with it. And so even though there was like a pandemic, my husband has been back to Istanbul maybe 8-10 times in the last 5 years. And so the first time I went back again was last spring. I went in April. It was Ramadan. We took our reluctant teenager. She wanted to be on the beach in Mexico. And we said, no, come to Turkey with us. And then I was able to go again in November without her. But from that very first trip to Istanbul, my husband said, they make this red lentil soup and it's so delicious. Can you start to make it? So I started making red lentil soup, and I made maybe 2 or 3 pots of red lentil soup every week for like 2 years, 3 years. Just that's what my husband ate. He was totally happy. And as you know, the regulars here know, soup is forgiving, and you just kind of throw things into the pot. I made it different every single time. I just would kind of, have the aromatics of the onion and the garlic, and then I would put in my red lentils, and I would put in some spices, and I would put in some broth and different vegetables, whatever I had on hand. And that's how I made it. So I did look up a recipe for us this time, and I plan to follow it more or less. And we'll see. I'm sure it's going to be delicious. I definitely saw that there were already spices that were in the recipe that I don't usually use. So for people who are cooking right now with us, you want to have your and your onion in the big pan, in the big pot.
Alexa, when you say that you usually use some of the spices in the recipe that we're using today, which, by the way, the New York Times had this little insert a few weeks ago on soups called Soups On, like what we were calling our soup on World Kindness Day. And they had this red lentil soup that, if not identical to the one you gave us, is almost identical. So that was pretty exciting. But I am down in Florida cooking for people who don't like cumin or cayenne. Have you made it, Alexa, with different spices than those?
I don't use, I guess I tend to use paprika or cayenne, but I don't always use cumin.
Okay.
And I have some mixes, and I have, actually, I'll be right back. Let me show you.
Troop 33003, you guys are having too much fun. Knock off all the kidding around.
This is what I've been using recently, which is dehydrated vegetables. And I bought these in the market in Istanbul. So it's a mix of, it looks like dried like carrots and peppers and onions and maybe some like scallions. So I just kind of put that in there, and then salt and pepper. So you definitely don't have to make it with cumin.
Okay.
So, and I think
what is that called, Alexa? The mixture of dried, is there a name for that?
Not that I know of.
Dried vegetables.
Yeah, dried vegetables. And in the markets, I couldn't find the pictures, but in the markets, and not just the tourist markets. I mean, obviously in downtown Istanbul and the kind of the old part, there are these wonderful, wonderful markets. And they're sort of like, there's the Egyptian spice market, which is very touristy. And then there's the Grand Bazaar, which is also very touristy. But on the outside of both are other, it's sort of spilled over, and it's more practical, less touristy things. And they'll have like eggplants that have been the insides pulled out and dried. And so it's like these husks of peppers or eggplant. I haven't used those, but I did get these, and there's something hot and spicy in here because it's definitely has a bite to it. But I don't know what it's called. Sorry, Betsy. So we should be stirring the onion for a little bit. Scouts, have you all cooked soup with us before? Have you cooked together? Do you want to tell us a little bit about you all?
Sure. Who wants? Have we cooked together before?
Yeah, I did. We haven't cooked soup, but we have cooked together. Yeah, we've done camping before. We cooked together. We made
So they
pasta. We've made pasta.
We made tacos when they go camping. Yeah. So they need to put their onion in now.
Yeah, they should have the olive oil or the oil and put the onions in, and then you kind of want to keep an eye on it and stir it around a little bit. Selma, can you tell us about maybe one of your trips to Istanbul? I know that you've been.
Yes, and I have that jar of dehydrated vegetables as well,
Very tasty.
and many other spices. Especially the spice market, the jar is full of spices, is so enticing, and the spice sellers are also so convincing. I end up buying so many things and then wonder how to use them when I'm back home. But hi, Alexa and everybody. I'm joining you from London, so it's almost 11 o'clock at night here. But nice to see you all. Trips to Istanbul. We also fell in love with Istanbul and with Turkey as a country. Just is a place where we feel really at home because of the mix of East and West, and that's who we are and who our kids are. Just this mix of East and West. So the one thing I'll just share, which Alexa, I'm sure you have your own experiences, but those of you who haven't been to Istanbul, it's a city full of cats, just cats everywhere. And one of the most beautiful aspects of the city and of the country is how everybody looks after these cats in particular, their dogs as well, communally. So outside each and every restaurant and outside the mosques and outside even homes, there are bowls of water and food for the cats. It's just, they're everybody's cats to look after, and they meander in and out of historic places, places of worship, in and out of cafes and stores, and they're just so respected and treated with such dignity. I remember we were in a small coffee shop, which was bustling with people, and all the tables and stools were taken. One of the stools, there was a cat napping on it, and somebody came, did not want to disturb the cat, just picked up the stool with the napping cat and moved it to another table and pulled up an empty stool. And that to me was just indicative of how they treat their animals there. It's just so beautiful. And I think, shows the compassion of the people. I think how people of a country treat their animals is a real sign of who they are as people. So that's just a story to share. There's actually been films made about the Cats of Istanbul. In fact, I think that is the title of one, The Cats of Istanbul. So yeah, that's always lovely.
You can actually see like outside of like metro stations and stuff too, they have like cat kind of like buildings. It's like little cat houses, and they're all put up together, and there are animal clinics, and there are a lot of dogs. I have a dog, it's my daughter's dog, but in many Muslim countries, dogs are not considered pets. And there are plenty of people in Turkey who have dogs as pets, but like the cats, there are many dogs, street dogs. And I didn't see dog houses quite the same way as I saw the kind of the cat hotels, but they're all tagged. And I believe that they get regular care. And I was walking one day with my husband, and, everybody sort of ignores, it's not like they're going up and petting these wild dogs, but the dogs kind of came up to me and were kind of like jumping on me, and it was a little uncomfortable. And we do want to be putting our carrots in, making sure that the onions and the garlic, which you'll have wanted to add your garlic, are not burning. Make sure that you have a nice good amount of oil in your pan.
Alexa, I have two questions. One is actually about soup.
Yes.
So I'm at the point where I put my broth in, and I put in 8 cups. I think the recipe calls for 16. Is that correct?
Yeah, 15, yeah.
Does it really need that much?
I know I tripled the recipe, and it had 5 cups of broth. I think once the potatoes break down and the lentils really cook, I was planning on using, almost 4 of these. Did you finish making it?
No, I'm in the, I've just poured in the
I
broth.
gotcha. Yeah, I would say that 8 cups of stock would definitely be enough for 3 cups of the red lentils.
Okay,
I started with about 10 and then
Huh?
just added more as I went along as it
Yeah.
needed. And then at the end added even more because the spices were a little overpowering.
so you
So I
did
always
do a-
like, I always put in a little less than called for because you can always add more, but you can't take it out.
Okay, thanks for that. Alexa, my second question for you is, since your husband is Egyptian and you've been to Egypt, does Egypt not do the same with cats? Because Israel certainly does the same with cats.
There is not the same. My husband's family is from a village in the Delta,
Ah.
and there are farm animals, and I'm sure there are cats in and around. But it's not quite the same.
Okay.
There's enough need for caring for the people in Egypt, and life is rough
You
in
would
many
say-
parts of Egypt. So
you would
there's
say-
not
Okay,
the attention given in the same way, I would say, to caring for pets. In Turkey, I really get the sense that the cats and the dogs, even though they don't have a home, and my Egyptian husband just took Harley the dog out for a walk.
now
Gives him
again,
an egg every morning. He's definitely learning, you know. But it isn't quite the same. I need to drain my potatoes. So if the onions and the garlic and the carrots are in with the olive oil, then we want to put the potatoes in so they can start to cook.
I'll just add, and Deb, this may be for, where are you in your tiki lounge? What happened to Deb? Oh, there you are. Oh, you're inside now. You got back into your Airbnb. So when I delivered my soup to here to help, and they opened up the freezer, and there was a lot of soup in the freezer that had not yet been distributed. So I don't know whether they kind of
Well,
All right.
no, I actually spoke with her and she said that is not a problem. They kind of are keeping an eye on it. They deliver, you know, with what they did last time and what they are going to have for next time in mind. So they like to hold over. This is really what she told me 2 weeks ago. So they like to hold over to make sure they have enough for the next time. But I will say that last week, Holton Arms had delivered their 30 or so quarts to them. So they are not telling us not to deliver. I told her I was going to hold off and she said, don't. So
Okay,
don't
good.
worry about them. And we just delivered a new refrigerator freezer to them. So they have
Okay.
plenty more room. But thank you, Betsy.
You're welcome, Deb. Thank you.
Which
That's the Here to Help in Chevy Chase.
In Bethesda.
In downtown Bethesda, sorry. Yeah, they started out in Chevy Chase. They're in downtown Bethesda at the Bethesda Presbyterian. And I think that we are, I don't know if it's been delivered, but last Monday we connected them with a refrigerator and a mover. So should be there.
Great.
Deb, while I need to get my broth on my stove,
Okay.
can you tell the troop at least a little bit about where we take the soups and how we do that?
Well, Troop, where are you guys located? I can't remember.
We just added in the tomato paste.
Oh, good job. I love it. Where do you all live? Are you a school-based troop or a what?
Garrett Park.
Garrett Park.
Garrett
Maryland.
Park. Okay. So
Garrett Park. I live.
You live by us?
I lived on Argyle Avenue when I was a teenager
Oh, yeah.
in Garrett Park,
Great.
Yep.
Yeah.
just down the street from across the street from the park.
Yeah, these girls started out, they're in middle school now. They started out together at Garrett Park Elementary in kindergarten.
oh, that's so nice. What grade are they in now?
What grade are you in now?
Seven.
Wow, that's fantastic, girls.
That's good, guys.
Yeah, so it's a little noisy on our end, so I'm gonna mute.
All right, sounds good. And I'll just remind everybody, and the troop can listen if they want, that there are a number of drop-off spots on the website where you can drop your soups. And we also encourage you to think about people you know who are maybe sick or not feeling quite right, or you think maybe could use a pick-me-up. And those are all great ways to use your soup quarts. You know, share with people you know, give them to the food assistance providers that we have on the website, or find another one. And if another place that you find is happy to have your soups. Tell me about that and we'll add them to the website. Okay, the whole idea is just to have some fun making soup and sharing it with people and making the world a little bit more kind. So thank you for joining us. Yes.
Freezing, frozen soup. The soup needs to be
Yeah,
frozen.
the website tells everyone the ways to package up and to label and to freeze their soup so that transportation is not a problem. They've got nice tight fitting lids. It's frozen. Thank you, Marge. It's all on the website for everybody who's new.
The other thing though, if they're using the containers for the deli containers, you can't fill them all the way to the top because you have to remember that when soup freezes, it expands. And if you fill it too high, it pops off the lids. So, leave a little space on top, okay?
Sounds good. Thank you, Marge. Marge is a professional. I love it.
I did a test soup yesterday and a test soup today.
Yeah.
Yesterday's test soup was fascinating. It was zucchini, pear, and cilantro.
Yeah.
And then it was delicious. It was slightly sweet, but not sugary. It was very, very good. We may make it this coming Sunday. Today I made a corn soup. It was different, but I think I like this pear and whatever soup better, zucchini.
Wonderful.
Was it a hot, like you cooked it, right? Like it wasn't like a gazpacho?
I did cook it, but I don't see any reason you couldn't eat it cold. It has pear, zucchini, cilantro. I'm trying to remember what else was in it. It had rice in it because you blend it, and I think the rice is just used as a thickener.
Interesting. That
Yeah.
sounds very interesting.
Yeah, I know some people don't like cilantro, but hey, it's clearly there in the title, so those people shouldn't eat that soup. But my son, who doesn't like zucchini, thought it was great.
I also think that you could put in other herbs. Like if you put in a little mint, like you could, if you don't like the cilantro, you could certainly put something else, preferably fresh,
Right.
Tasting. All right, so I prematurely added my garlic cloves, and now I'm going to add my tomato paste. The one I'm using, the brand is Sera, S-E-R-A, and it's actually Turkish. And I bought it at a Middle Eastern grocery store in Tyson's Corner. And it has a lovely shaped jar, and I like to keep the jars. My daughter loves to propagate plants, and so she's always stealing my cool shaped jars. But this will take me quite a while to use, and so I'll put olive oil in the top when I put it in the fridge.
That was such an important tip.
Yeah.
Seriously, do any of you try to save tomato paste, or what's the other, red pepper paste? It always goes a little moldy prematurely because of the air. I love that olive oil trick. Thank you.
Yeah, and you don't actually have to use fancy olive oil. You can use,
Whatever. Yeah.
I'd use avocado oil.
Brilliant.
And this is a big one, and I'll have to be pretty diligent to use it as much as possible. I'm glad I like tomato paste. But even the small cans, we have to take it out of the cans and then put it in something. But the oil provides a seal for it, so it doesn't get moldy.
I love that.
Fast.
I have another way that I store tomato paste.
Yeah.
Because you're right.
In the freezer?
No, I store it in the freezer in a baggie.
Yeah.
So I cut off as much as I needed today, and I threw it in the pot.
I love that one too.
That's great.
Oh, wait, I'm gonna pin the troop. Look at how good they're.
Great.
It does look so good.
And it looks like
check.
teamwork is happening.
Nice work, girls.
So I think everybody else knows this, but the troop can learn too. Some people, right, Lisa, love to cook exactly like with the exact measurements and measuring everything. And then some of us like to eyeball it, right? So I have a soup spoon, and I'm just going to put some tomato paste into my soup. Kind of trying, let's see what the recipe says. I think just 3 tablespoons. 3 tablespoons of tomato paste. So this is probably 2. And what happens when you put tomato paste in a pot that's hot and has oil, it kind of like fries up the tomato paste a little bit. You want to be sure that it doesn't burn, but it's quite yummy. So I'm going to put in the tomato paste, the cumin, so all the spices, which I need to look. the paprika. I'm going to taste this. I've actually been fasting today, so I haven't broken my fast yet. So I'm not going to taste this quite yet. But this is bul biber, like bell pepper. But at least in Arabic, there's no B that's separate from a P, right? And so it is in Turkish, but it's funny that the B and the P is opposite. So bul biber, açık kırmızı, and so it's hot red pepper. So I might be very sparing with this at the end. Who was it? Someone asking about the paprika oil. Was it Lisa? Yeah. Did you already made the soup, right?
I made the soup, but I didn't do the oil yet because I didn't know if we would then put it on top of the container, or, you know, it was a step that I was uncertain of. So I stopped myself and waited for direction.
I think too, it sort of depends. These containers, I guess it depends where people are taking their soups, but when it's individual containers, it's getting handed out frozen to families, right?
Right.
So I think a little drizzle is fine if you want to make the effort, but I think like some of the garnishes, it's not necessary because it's gonna get defrosted and mixed up. And
But do you think that it really helps the taste, Alexa? So even though it's just going to get all mixed in, will it be a better tasting soup with that oil on it? Or
I think it's 6 to 1/2 dozen to the other. It's really
Okay.
So the other thing that was put in as a garnish, which I think should be added when the soup is done, is the lemon juice. Because that really, it adds a nice acidity to it. And then that's what I did. I did about 2 or 3 tablespoons of lemon juice in the finished soup.
Yes. Yeah, I would definitely agree that that'll like brighten up the flavors. So even though I was really generous with my tomato paste, I'm not going to be that generous with the cumin, and I'm going to measure the cumin because it gets very overpowering very quickly. And there's a big difference between teaspoons and tablespoons, particularly when it comes to cumin.
I have a question for Betsy. So Betsy, you said that you added more water because you felt the spices were very strong, correct?
So Marge, what I said is when I prepared it, I maybe put in 10 or 11 cups of broth. I didn't do the full amount of broth, and I kept adding more based upon texture and flavor at the end, just to even everything out. So it probably was exactly the amount that Alexa had in her recipe, but I didn't start with that much water, that much broth.
I think I'm at about 12 cups right now. I wanted to know when you tasted it. Did you wait till you started pureeing and then add more water, or was it was still soup-like? Okay.
No, it was after it was pureed.
It was after. Okay, thank you. Then I'm going to wait.
Okay.
I'm going to be patient. The thing about the oil, the paprika oil, that sounded interesting to me is in the picture, it looks so pretty, you know, to make a little squiggle thing. And I like that look. It's very nice. So I may do it on top of the, you know, once it starts to cool, maybe I'll put a little something on top, which is how I usually deal with the frozen soups, you know, before they go in the freezer. And then, of course, you have to be careful carrying them downstairs. Because otherwise,
Can I take a real quick poll of, because I know we're going to lose Terry soon and we're going to lose Betsy soon, and I'm afraid of losing anybody else soon too. I want to take a quick poll. Next week, we're going to continue our tour around the world, but we do not yet have a specific chef and recipe in mind. So we're going to do one of the great soups that we have done in the past. And we've made, for those of you who have been cooking with us for a while, the Thai carrot red pepper, I think it was, or the Chinese winter soup, which was a mushroom and tofu Chinese kind of soup.
we've already made that one 2 or 3 times, haven't we?
Well, I think you did, Marge, but we made it
only once or twice?
Maybe twice.
Right,
But
and then I
got,
made it the 3rd time, so
yeah.
it was a good soup.
And
How
the
about
same with the Thai carrot but sweet potato soup. So I think those were great and got uniformly great reviews. But do people have any interest, or are you sick of either or both of those?
Well, if it's going to be winter for a little longer, we could do the Chinese
Oh.
winter, and then we can do the
Yeah.
other one. So I've now put in my lentils. I had rinsed my lentils. It's obviously it's on the website about soaking, but you don't need to soak red lentils. You do need to rinse them in cold water, and when you do, you'll find that there's like the water gets kind of milky. That's some of the starch. And before you put the water in, it's always beneficial, and certainly, you know, traditional women cooks who really pay attention and don't do things quickly like I do would pick through and really make sure that there are no little stones, you know, in the lentils. So I use red lentils, and also you can get red lentils from many places. I got mine from a Middle Eastern store up in Rockville. And I think they were actually probably Turkish red lentils. It's really okay if you get the kind that are not super, super bright, because sometimes those are actually colored with food coloring, even though I won't say it on the package. The ones I got were kind of medium bright. But I just put in all my broth. I saved out a couple of cups. So now I just have it coming to a boil. So hopefully that's where everybody is. I'm going to add a few more spices shortly. And Shoop, do you all have and does anybody have any questions? Any questions? Terry, had you already cooked? Did you already make it?
Yes, I made it already, and as you can see, my husband behind me is helping himself to the soup. I love this soup. I will definitely make it again, and I'm going to share it with my sister-in-law who lived in Turkey for 10 years. So,
oh wow,
yeah, and just say that my Alexa speaker has been going nuts during this whole session.
Was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Somebody kept, oh no, it was last week, the delicious Indian soup.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, oh, I'm on, I have to say something now. No, she was not talking to me. Needless to say, I do not have an Alexa in my house other than myself. So let me see if I want to see if I can just, I'm sure that so many of us have watched this, but can I just share my screen real? Deb, can you let me share my screen?
Yep. Hold on. Okay, you should be all set.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so that's a stock photo. And so obviously the area is over here, you know, on the Syrian border. And the earthquake today was also here. Hatay is not on this map, but you know, it's just devastating. And I believe that today, like the earthquakes 2 weeks ago, they were felt even in Alexandria, Egypt. My husband is hoping to go there soon. There are huge cracks that appeared 2 weeks ago in the sidewalks, all the way down across the Mediterranean in Egypt. So there's that, and then this picture, which is where the earthquakes, these were the first ones 2 weeks ago. And then you can see Hatay here is down here. So that's where it happened today.
Didn't Syria have a separate earthquake? In addition to those, there was another one, correct? It wasn't just those that affected Syria, correct? Or do we not know?
I don't know. That's certainly possible.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, obviously the seismic activity there is just horrendous. I found these statistics are from Reuters from today. So it's for over 47,000. Where does it say? Oh yeah, the deaths. It's 40,000. It's 40,000 deaths. 47,000 deaths. And then, you know, well over 100,000 people have been injured. 2.4 million people have been displaced, and of whom, you know, many of those, you know, along the border had already been displaced and were already living without very good infrastructure and without enough services or help. And then 24 million people in the whole region, and thousands and thousands of buildings collapsed obviously then, and then ones today that had been obviously damaged a few weeks ago. In Hatay, they fell today, and so there were people that were some people that were buried today as well. So the horror just keeps coming. And again, it's going to be billions and billions and billions of dollars, all around. And I picked 3, and I can send, these are the big ones that are really, very well known. International Rescue Committee. Obviously, KindWorks has worked locally with the local when we were doing the refugee setups, and so that's one of the reasons. But they're also, one of the best and most well known in the world. And then I also chose World Central Kitchen. Also, Jose Andres is local to us. I think they're aiming to provide close to 1 million meals, and they are spread out throughout the region, providing meals. So they are on the ground, and places, organizations like IRC, like Médecins Sans Frontières, have been in the area. They have been trying for many years, really, to get services into Syria, and so these are the 3 big ones that are secular, well known. My news feed is just full of well-known Islamic figures in this country who are working with very well-reputed Islamic organizations that have been on the ground right there for many, many years, providing services. And so I'm seeing, daily the videos of people. My husband not remembering that this is being recorded, and y'all can hear him blowing his nose. Sorry. So you're on video. So okay, I'm going to stir my soup because it's boiling now. And so you want to keep an eye and make sure that it doesn't burn. And I also don't want it too high because I don't want all my stock to I don't want all the stock to kind of go off. I already gave it to him. So all right, so I will stop sharing this. But again, there are so many organizations, and find one that's close to your heart that that you feel comfortable with. Certainly, I think that people all in this area and around the world have Turkish communities and houses of worship, and civic organizations are working very, very hard to help the affected people, and an outpouring of love from all over the world. So I know even in this area, there were so many coat drives and item drives, and it's really requested now that everything. Oh, okay, I'm glad. I should go, Harley. You don't need to cook with us. That only good quality things, like brand new things, right? I think a lot of places were maybe inundated with things that were not so good. Again, people wanting to help, but it's really best now at this point. Multiple organizations have said, please send money. They have the resources to get new, good quality items, and they have the infrastructure to to get it to the people on the ground there. So, all right, I'm going to keep stirring. Marge, I can already see that my soup is getting quite thick. And I did when I tripled the recipe, I did just triple it exactly the way it had been written, which was 5 cups of liquid for 1 cup of lentils. And I only did 3 cups of lentils, and my soup is definitely thickening.
I just added another cup of water, and I've got 9 minutes left in my simmer.
I got you.
So I'm going to see, and as you can always Soup is for giving. This is for that troop 33003. Soup is for giving. You want to add celery? That's not going to kill the soup. You don't want to add something? That works too.
That is good. That is good because we made the soup and we think it was about following the directions, but maybe not entirely.
Well, you know, it's funny, and this is important for the girls to know. When you're baking, you need to follow directions. With soup, it's, you know, you need to adjust to your own personal tastes, and you can use things up that are in the refrigerator. So that's a good thing about soup. We like that. Then there are those of us who put spinach in brownies, but that's a different story.
Or avocados and brownies.
Do you put avocados in brownies?
It can. It's a wonderful, wonderful, you know, healthy fat. So yeah, I'm just gonna let my soup, you know, keep simmering, and then I'll add maybe a little bit more broth as needed. And did Terry leave? I guess she did.
She tried, she tends to sign off around 6, so she comes early.
I
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay.
So, Alexa, talk to everyone for a minute about to blend or not to blend.
So I think it is up to you. I personally am not currently in possession of an immersion blender. If I had an immersion blender, then I would probably blend it. As it is, I might, when it cools down, I might put some of it in my Cuisinart food processor. And I'm curious to see, you know, how I want it to cook down so that it's soft and the sort of starch from the lentils kind of comes out and the starch from the potatoes. I think it'll be quite creamy, and we'll probably have some of it unblended, but typically, traditionally, it's blended. It is definitely blended. And I mentioned that I made, you know, pots and pots and pots of this soup, and my husband finally confessed to me. I said, I like this soup, you know, this is really good. And he said, yeah, I kind of like it from when it's in Turkey. And mine never tasted the same, you know, and again, you know, there are probably many different recipes, and each, you know, family has their way of making red lentil soup that is their recipe. And I just personally, when I cook, I just kind of throw things in, so it's never the same thing. But yes, traditionally it is definitely you know, at every restaurant. There's these wonderful restaurants out in the area where we stay that are very inexpensive, and they're outdoors, and it's not cafeteria style, but it's just simple, good, not fancy, but very tasty. Turkish food is really, it's just scrumptious. It's so good, and it's, you know, lots of different flavors and you know, mixing and you know, some yogurt and an eggplant and an eggplant dip and lots of tasty meat, and it's just yummy. And they eat a lot of bread. It's less rice based and it's more bread based, so they, you know, want to have things that they can dip the bread in. But certainly red lentil soup is very popular. And it's good.
Have you found any good Turkish restaurants in the area?
So there's in Tyson's, there's East West, which has a really humongous breakfast spread. That's eggs and sausages and little sweet things and bottomless tea. And then there's Istanbul Grill, Agora in Tyson's. There's some more. Oh, there's a very good Turkish place. It's probably too far out for any of us. And I live in Northern Virginia, and it was quite a hike. Out in Manassas, there's a very popular breakfast place called My Cravings with a Z at the end. And they started actually right before the pandemic, and it was just like a mom and pop shop. And they started just doing baked goods, and they make all of their baked goods there. And somehow they managed to hang on through the pandemic, and now they keep expanding their space. I went there 2 weeks ago, and it was full of families. And again, you can order lots of like egg dishes and different dips and olives and cheeses and really good breads. But downtown, you know, DC based ones. Salma, do you know of any good Maryland Turkish restaurants?
Those of us who live across the bridge don't care that it's in Tyson's. I live on the bridge. So to me, Tyson's is 11 minutes, provided they finish Georgetown Pike. I don't know if they finished that overpass yet. That's been making a mess of things. But yeah, I don't have to go tomorrow. I can wait.
Right.
Let's finish building.
Some, I don't know, do you know of any Turkish restaurants in Bethesda or?
There's one called Cafe Divan, Divan.
Is that Turkish? I thought it was Persian.
Oh, maybe.
There's a divan in McLean now, and that's Persian.
What my lullaby?
Let's see. It says Turkish. That's the only one
Maybe
besides the ones you've mentioned.
Nice.
Okay, good to know. I'm sorry, and where was that Cafe Devon? Was that in Silver Spring or was that downtown? Some.
I'm just checking online. Hold on one second.
She's in London.
Oh, forget it. Don't even worry. So no one's been there. We don't. Okay, that's fine. I have an internet. I know how to do that. But I wanted to go back to what Deb asked because Deb was looking for a soup.
Oh, Marge,
I'd like
I found it. It's Cafe Divan and it's in DC
Okay.
on Wisconsin Avenue, 1834 Wisconsin.
Oh,
And
that's not too bad.
it is in fact Turkish.
Okay. Okay. So back to what Deb was talking about a soup for next week. I didn't see any of us voting, but since no one has voted, I'm going to throw in that Portuguese chickpea soup, which we've made. And I thought that was very good. So if we don't do it this time, I mean, I don't know how many weeks in this around the world thing we have, but we can just keep throwing those in when people don't step up. Does anyone know any Portuguese who wants to lead?
All right, I've got that on the list, but Marge, I'm making the executive decision that this coming Tuesday, we are going to make the Chinese winter soup. We don't cook with mushrooms a lot. We don't cook with tofu a lot. So we're going to make that one on Monday, and I hope you'll all join us. And in the future, we will make the Portuguese chickpea soup, and we will make the Thai carrot sweet potato, because that was just awfully great too.
And can you tell us a little bit about what the yummy soups that are coming up are? Just sort of where we're thinking, or are we just going where chefs appear?
Yes, we sure are. We are not traveling the world with regard to energy efficiency. We're traveling with regard to where chefs are stepping up. So let's see, we've been to India and we've been to Northern Africa, and we are cooking from Turkey today. Carol Weil is going to actually break our plan a little bit and teach us a vegetarian chicken matzo ball soup. So it will be a matzo ball soup, but it will not be chicken based. And we're going to do that on March 6th in time for the Jewish holidays for some, and for all others just to enjoy some yummy faux chicken soup. Let's see what else. Then we have an Israeli chef, and I have yet to receive the recipe that she is creating for us, but it will draw from many of the different regions that Israel cuisine draws from. So a Mediterranean kind of soup. And she is I think a fairly well-known chef in the DC area, right, Marge? Has been talking me to get her.
Yeah, I've had her food. She cooks for Sixth and I, and so I'm trying to remember what holiday it was. It was obviously during the pandemic when no one was going anywhere or doing anything, and she was cooking, I think it was a Rosh Hashanah dinner. And we got it as a takeout type thing, and it was excellent. So yeah, I'd like to try.
She should be fantastic, and a really fantastic chef. And the week after that, we'll be going to Ireland and making a potato leek soup with Dominique, who's one of our project leaders, and who also has a house on the southwestern portion of Ireland that she's been lucky enough to go to. And I've been even luckier because I got to visit. So we'll be learning a little bit about Ireland and the part of the world that she's become so familiar with recently. And then the following week, I think we're going to be making with Shauna Simon from Simon Says Yoga, a Greek fasolada, which I believe is a bean soup. So
Ooh,
we've got a
yes.
lot coming up in March, and it's all going to be delicious and fun and exciting. So I really hope that you all and people that you know will just make the commitment to just spend an hour and a half with us every Monday. Should be a ton of fun.
And it is so great. I mean, I know that we talk about this, just how delicious and forgiving the soups are, and also how much the flavors vary. And I love food as a kind of an entree into a culture. It's just one. I mean, food is important in most cultures, right? But it's just kind of one way to just experience it a little bit, even just cooking in our homes. And for me, my experience of Turkey, and I've only been in Istanbul, is, the ancientness of Istanbul, right? And the layers and layers of cultures, the various empires, historical eras. But even now the society is so complex. And so it's just fascinating. So I feel very comfortable when I go there. I do not speak Turkish. I can read it. I'm doing Duolingo. I can say a few words, and somehow I feel comfortable to just look something up and to say it. And then they say a bunch of stuff back to me that I don't understand. And I just I love being there. And it just feels so very, very comfortable. And I can appreciate that I don't know everything about the culture. I don't, if I think about American culture, there's so many layers, and every region has its politics and culture and language and, dialect and, and soup and foods and everything. And so, it's fun I'm so glad we're doing this tour of the world to experience just the different flavors. A Turkish red lentil soup is different even than an Egyptian, lentil soup, or a Moroccan lentil soup, but certainly, a Chinese winter soup, or even a Greek soup is going to taste different than a Turkish soup, and the soup last week, the Indian, it was so, I wish I had the details, that I could share on a similar level for Turkey, but I don't.
You're giving us a really great taste to our to our taste senses, but also to our brains. A great little introduction, and I think that all of us are leaving wanting to go there. So don't feel like we're not getting what we came to get, Alexa.
Well, thank you. And I certainly, my husband and I are hoping to spend more time there. So look me up if you come over. But it is just, Istanbul is just, it is such an incredible mix of East and West. And very, very enjoyable. So as the soup is cooking, and once everything is really, really, really soft and it's a consistency that you like, remember too that lentil soup, when it cools down, it's going to get very, very much thicker. And so you want to sort of judge how thick is it now when it's hot, and know that it's gonna kind of solidify when it cools down, particularly if you've used like a meat-based broth. So sort of judge that now, but then also once it cools down a little bit, taste it and add a little bit more salt or
Alexa, let me ask a question. You just said a meat-based broth will thicken a soup more than a vegetable-based broth?
Yeah, like if you use bone broth or something,
If you just use like a regular thing of chicken broth?
Right, no, it's not going to. But, and again, this was, a vegetarian one. But just in terms of cooking, if you make like a chicken soup and you use, the bones and all that stuff to make the stock first, it's going to gelatinize a little bit. Okay, which is what's so healthy about it. But just as this soup, cools down, I realized I haven't put enough salt in it yet. I haven't tasted it, but I just realized I definitely did not put enough salt in it. So you want to taste it, and then remember, as Betsy said, that lemon juice and the mint, adding the mint to the end will really brighten it up.
I was thinking about, remember everybody or those who were with us when Omar made the soup and he taught us to grind the mint this way to get the most flavor out of the dried mint?
No, were you, I was on there, were you, yes. Okay.
I'll just add, Alexa, thank you for this. This was so lovely. And definitely looking forward to making it when I'm back in my kitchen. We make lentils, as you know, in South Asian culture, but this was a different recipe. So I'm looking forward to trying it. And I'll just add one story about how just soup connects. We were having dinner this evening with a gentleman from Budapest, from Hungary, and he ordered soup as his starter. And he said to us that, you know, if I don't have soup for 2 or 3 days, I feel really nervous. I feel very anxious and agitated. I'm like, really? Tell me more. What does soup do for you, or do to sort of calm you? And he just, you know, in Hungary, there is such a tradition of soup. There are so many different kinds of soups, and it's just something that, you know, families grow up with. There's always soup on the dinner table, and it's just a staple. So we spent the next most all of dinner talking about soup, and it was such a lovely way to connect with this gentleman who I didn't know, a colleague of my husband's, and just to get to know him and the country and the culture that he's coming from. And of course, I told him all about us, and that I'd be joining soon to cook soup virtually with you all, and invited him to share. We talked about goulash, you know, that's one of the typical Hungarian soups, and he explained where the word comes from. It actually refers to the shepherd that shepherds the cows, because goulash is a meat-based soup. And we talked about paprika, which is actually, I just know it as the red pepper that I put in many of my soups, but paprika for him was this green actual pepper. And he showed me a picture of it, and how we couldn't possibly make it in the US, this particular soup, because that is such a vital ingredient in goulash, and we don't have this particular pepper that's grown in Hungary. So I did invite him to teach us a goulash that is that can be made, and I hope he'll take us. He was very happy to. It's just the timing is, you know, right now it's 11:30 at night in London, at the same time in Budapest. So if we ever do a KindSoup a little bit earlier, he and his wife, I'm sure, would love to teach us a Hungarian soup recipe.
We'd love that. And I love that story. Is there a chance that in the interim we could get a recipe from him for goulash? Because Annette wants to cook a goulash because she just took a trip to Hungary and loved it.
Yeah, sure. I will definitely ask him.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
How do you make the paprika oil? What's the ratio of the oil with the paprika?
Did it say on the recipe? Let's see.
Just says heat the oil in a small pot, add paprika, and stir to combine and remove from heat.
Yeah, I would say it's probably just like a little bit, and because you still have the paprika in the soup, and so it's definitely not like a thick paste or anything like that. It would be you know, just to kind of to color it a little bit, but heating it will make the flavor come out, I think, you know, when it hits the hot soup. So how's it taste, Marge?
I am eating the corn soup that I made earlier. Because there
I
was a
see.
little left in the pot. And I'm, you know, it's an interesting question. How does it taste? Is it worthy of being one of our soups? I was sort of disappointed because I thought when I made a corn soup, it would be kind of yellowish in color, but it's very brown because it has a lot of allspice in it. So it's got a very different taste, and then it has the corn kernels. So I haven't tasted it yet. I'm waiting. I want it to cool a little bit, then I'll taste it, then I'll puree it, then I'll taste it again and decide if I want to add more water. I think I'm about at 13, maybe 13 and a half cups. You know.
I put in the right amount, and it's delicious. It's
Well,
really
Marcia, Marge is talking about a corn soup.
Yeah,
She's not talking about our soup.
No, I meant about our soup. No,
Oh.
Marcia,
Oh.
13 cups, yeah.
no, the corn soup has too much liquid in it. That's a stated fact. I know that, I can tell that, and plus it's very brown, but having allspice in a soup makes for a very interesting, it's a nice taste.
Mm.
Probably a light touch is better. Marcia, have you been able to taste the soup we've made tonight? Were you cooking?
Yeah, it's delicious, really delicious. It's got to soften up the carrots just a tad more, but the taste of it is really good. And I added like another 1/4 cup of water, but 15 cups I think is just about right. Yeah.
Good. And how are our scouts doing? How's the soup?
Looks
turning
like
out?
they've left. What happened?
Well, I lost my scouts.
I see.
Well, the
Meeting was over.
the thing, well, it's like the stuff is simmering, so they all, ran off. But I'm gonna corral them here in a minute and make them do the next step. So,
Oh, good.
Wonderful.
Well, let us know how it turns out. We're going to sign off, but let us know, send me an email, and I hope they love it. And let me, don't forget to report in where you share your soups, okay?
Right. Okay. Yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, thank you. They had a really good time making it, and you know how it is with kids. It's a little hard to keep them in one place for too long, but they're coming back.
Thank you so
All right,
much for joining us.
It was so fun. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hope
You
to
guys
see you
can
again.
join. You guys can join any Monday. We're here.
Okay. Oh, so actually, I have one last question. Sorry, I know you're about to sign off.
That's all right.
The lemon. What are we supposed to do with the lemon?
So I would say, I'm gonna let my soup get as soft as I want it, and maybe, kind of smush it up a little bit and kind of taste it and adjust for seasonings before I add the lemon. Make sure I have enough salt, enough pepper, enough, heat to it. And then I'll add my lemon juice. But for this amount of soup, it says juice of 3 lemons, which I just juiced, and I think it'll really brighten it up.
Okay. Yeah, I love lemon. Okay.
All right, everybody have a great week. I hope to see you next Monday. All right. Thank you,
Thank
Alexa. This was so
My
much
pleasure.
fun and entertaining and instructional.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Good to
All
see
right.
you all. Take
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye all.